This is Rising Phoenix Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. This podcast is for men struggling with an unwanted divorce. I interview experts on divorce, mental health, and I provide insights gained from my own divorce journey. You are not alone. Join me. Joining me today is Ashley Milus. Ashley, let's just jump right into this. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. I'm so happy to be here. Um, I am a somatic grief and life transition coach. And so I work with people going through many different forms of loss and life changes. And divorce is one of those big ones that I help people through. I help people kind of navigate that experience. I help to support their healing. I help them to safely process the emotions and feelings that come and help them to reconnect back to themselves and guide them in moving forward. And I do it in a very holistic way, which means I'm really looking at the whole person. I'm really looking at their mind, body, soul, emotions. And I specialize in a somatic approach, which means I spend a lot of time working with the body. So I'm really looking at how someone is experiencing their divorce from within their body. Yeah. So that's a little confusing, and we can get into more
No,
of
I
that as
mean,
well.
yeah, no, I understand the concept, and I think it's just
Mhm.
something that I definitely struggle with myself, just sort of because it's so kind of abstract in a way,
Mhm.
because it's not something that we're not told about, we don't learn it. It's not, it's not in the textbooks type of thing.
Right.
But we have enough folks that are way smarter than I am that are telling us, the body keeps the score. Is a book
Mhm.
referenced on this podcast multiple times. So
Yes.
I definitely understand it in theory. It's just in practice that I get lost. But before we jump into sort of the somatic stuff, um, let's talk about grief and how people struggle to acknowledge it appropriately, whatever the hell that means.
Mhm.
Um, why do people struggle with that portion? And how do they what does that do to them if they don't? Like what is the outcome of that sort of inability to acknowledge the grief?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's so much grief that comes with divorce that I don't think that it always gets recognized. And one reason is because we kind of just think of it as, oh, we're grieving the loss of the relationship, but there's so much more loss than just that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's variations. There could be the loss of a home, a loss of the community that you live in, loss of friends, family, loss of um, just even financial losses, and the loss of, and this is the big one, like the loss of what you had hoped your life would be, right? This vision of your life. There's this grief that comes with that. So there's so much more than just the loss of a relationship. So there is so many variations of the grief that we feel. And I think, because divorce is so common, that I think people are like, oh, it's just something that happens. It's common. You go through, you get through it, and it's done. And I mean, to minimize it like that is terrible because people just think they're supposed to kind of plow through it. It's a normal thing that happens and that's it. But divorce is extremely painful. It brings out just about every emotion in the book,
Yeah.
and people really struggle with it. And I don't think that the grief is always recognized because we're so busy tending to all the other aspects of what a divorce brings, right? But there is such a mental and emotional component that comes to it that needs to get addressed. And then I think, on the other hand, some people do recognize that it's really hard on them. And I think that grief doesn't always get taken care of because it's too much to feel, right? It's too painful, it's too much, and we don't even want to go there. So it's easier just to suppress,
Right.
deny, just kind of, you know, ignore it a bit.
Do
And
you do you think that in your experience, and this is something brought up constantly on this podcast because obviously this podcast is for men. Do you think that
Hmm.
men struggle more with that component of a divorce than women?
I do. I do. And I work with a lot of men as well. And I think it's hard. I think it's harder for men in the sense of in society, men are kind of brought up to be like, have a strong face, get over it. You don't want to feel your emotions, like boys don't cry, that kind of thing. And so really so many men are brought up from a very young age, like in childhood, really to just not feel anything and just keep going, keep going. And it's awful. And I see a lot of men struggle with that. And so, yeah, when I start working with them, we kind of have to break that down a little bit, that kind of, because it's like their pattern,
Yeah,
many men's pattern to just, oh no, I don't feel that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and one of the things that is told to everyone, one of the things I tell everyone is to get into therapy.
Hmm.
I think a good therapist is a pretty invaluable tool. Good being the key word there, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but oftentimes we can't find a good one, or even if we do, it doesn't feel like there are moments when it feels like it's not helping, um, or it's not enough. Why is it that maybe for some talk therapy, traditional Freudian type stuff, it just isn't enough?
Yeah. And I see that a lot with my clients. Some people will come to me from therapy and say, it helped me to a certain extent, but I've just kind of hit a plateau. I'm not really going anywhere. I feel a little stuck. Um, and I think, and there's nothing against therapy. Therapy, like a traditional talk therapy, is wonderful. It helps people in many ways. It's great for, really figuring out that cognitive understanding, like why we think the way we do, why we behave the way we do. But that's only kind of one aspect of healing, the mind and our thoughts. And the other aspect of healing is how are we kind of feeling this in our body? Like what's happening in our body and on a nervous system level. There's so much more than what's happening in our mind. And I think with a traditional talk therapist, we're not really paying attention so much to our body and our nervous system. And when we're missing that piece, we're missing a lot of information that's in there because there's like so much going on within us that our thinking mind can't always comprehend. And so it's really important to go deeper into that aspect of things.
Yeah. So what does that mean? And let's dive into that, right? This is
Hmm.
sort of your expertise, I would say, somatics, which is just a cooler way of saying the body, right? Essentially, how the
Yeah.
body
Hmm.
and the nervous system all kind of work together.
Yes.
And yeah, how what is sort of if someone comes to you and they're like, okay, I've been doing therapy, um, it's a little bit helpful, but it hasn't really gotten me out of this um, malaise, we'll call it. That's because that's
Hmm.
a funky word.
Yeah.
What is sort of step one with that guy? What do you do in order to start incorporating somatic stuff into his healing?
Hmm. Well, I think first of all, I think it would be helpful to explain a little bit more of what it is,
Yeah.
before I would go into that. And it is a bit hard to explain because it's such an experiential process. Like you really have to kind of feel it to really get it. But I'm going to try my best so that you can kind of get an understanding somewhat. So, with a somatic approach, we're really looking at how we're experiencing something from within our body, which is separate from our thoughts about it. So we're really taking a look at what we're feeling rather than what we're thinking. So that means exploring emotions, physical sensations, body movements, our nervous system, and like how our nervous system is responding. So, for instance, if I had a client that was telling me a story, talking about what they're going through, I might say to them, and as you are telling me this, what are you noticing in your body? And so that could be many different things. They might notice emotions. Maybe it's a physical sensation, maybe a heaviness in their chest or a constriction in their throat. Or maybe it's like an impulse. Maybe it's an impulse to kind of tighten up, freeze up. Or maybe it's an impulse to get up and walk away, or maybe an impulse to cry. And so whatever comes is just what we explore. And so by listening to this language of the body, we're able to gain a much deeper understanding of what's truly going on inside. So we're paying attention to what needs to be acknowledged and what needs to happen in order for us to process and move forward. Because, like I said earlier, there's often so much more going on within us that our thinking mind can't really comprehend. And so it's really kind of that this work is like connecting the dots. We're kind of tapping into this inner wisdom, and then we're able to kind of connect that more with our mind and then just create a much more effective way to heal.
Yeah, I'm just trying to process as you're talking because again,
Mm-hmm.
this is so very abstract in some ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so let's try and run sort of a scenario. I know for me,
Mm-hmm.
stress in general, I clench my jaw a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I grind my teeth. I catch myself doing it. Um, so that's a stress response that I have. So what do you do with that? What do we do with that? how do we what do we do with that knowledge and how does that help me to heal?
Mm-hmm. Well, in a set, first of all, that's great that you have an awareness of that as well. That's always the first step is
Yep,
being aware of like how, when we're going through things, like how it's being held in our body.
yep,
So, and you mentioned your jaw, that's a big one.
hmm
People really hold a lot there.
yep.
So if you were in a session with me and that came up, the kind of tight, what you said, the clenching of your jaw and what a tightness
Uh,
in shoulders or
um,
just full body tightness.
I mean, anytime I get stressed, the muscles in my spine, the upper muscles that go not the whole way down the spine, but the ones at the
Hmm.
top, definitely
Hmm.
get very. I can tell when I'm stressed by that for sure, and the clenching and the grinding of my teeth is the big one.
Hmm. Hmm.
I shouldn't say the big. They're both pretty fucking big, to be honest with you. I've noticed the back upper back thing for a very long time, a couple of years. The grinding of my teeth thing has been a recent um revelation. I don't think that's the right fucking word, but
Hmm.
it's a discovery, a recent discovery.
Yeah.
And so yeah, those two combined, when I'm feeling stressed, they're very apparent to me now.
Yeah. So in a session, we would break that up into pieces because that's a lot going on, right? There's the jaw, there's the spine, there's so much that you just mentioned. So we would just start by taking what feels like it needs the most attention,
Mm,
and we would start there. And in somatic work, we really, really slow things down, almost to the point where, we'll start with what's happening. What do you notice in your body before you clench your jaw? What is going on there? And then we get into the process of the actual clenching. And there's this whole way that I work with things and we kind of notice as we're exploring that, we're noticing what else is coming up. And that could be an emotion, or maybe there's tears that come, or maybe there's something else that, another sensation that comes up. Could be even like an image, a visual image, a word or a phrase, or sometimes it might be like, oh, this was a similar feeling of when I was a kid. This had this one thing that happened. So we're really just kind of, when we go gently and slowly into a sensation like that, we're seeing what else is attached to it and what else is coming up. And I'm
okay.
also tracking the nervous system at the same time. So I'm going with the nervous system. So when something I can notice, it feels like it's getting a bit too intense, we pull back. This is called titration, right? So we don't want anything to feel like too much Then
Right.
we come back to a place maybe in your body that feels good, or maybe I pull it back out into we're looking around the room to find something that feels either neutral or safe, it feels good. So I think a lot of people get worried, kind of scared to do this work. So they're like, ooh, I don't want to go in and feel something too deep. It's going to be too intense. I don't want to do it. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
raising your hand like, yes.
Guilty. Yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
so what and that can happen a lot in like talk therapy too. It's
Sure.
like telling the story and oh my gosh, you're getting so activated. It's almost like re-traumatizing, right? To just be in this story. And so with somatic work, it's very different because it's like taking bite-sized pieces of things. We feel a little bit and then we bring it back into a place of kind of safety. And
Right.
then we kind of touch in again, and then we pull back. So it's a very, very gentle process. And by doing it this way, we're able to process it better. Because when our body doesn't feel safe enough, like, we're kind of in that, like, oh no, this is too much. We're not going to process it.
Right. Yeah, it's scary stuff. I mean, I could talk about
Mhm.
that kind of feeling when you are doing this sort of healing work. It means, my old therapist unfortunately passed away. One of the things he used to say all
Mhm.
the time is you can only heal it if you feel it. And so feeling it is it's fucking scary though, right? Because
Yeah.
we're talking about some traumatic stuff, obviously, or otherwise you wouldn't be scared of dealing with it or talking about it or reliving
Mhm.
it, sort of thing. So I took some notes here. So I want to stop and sort of ask some questions about what you just said. So there's a
Mhm.
couple things that came up. So when you're aware, or being aware allows you to um deal with what's going on. And how am I trying to say this? I think the goal is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not to stop stress or negative emotions. It's just to be conscious of the fact that they're there so that you can deal with them, right? This isn't to stop negativity, right? Being mindful of your body doesn't um stop negative events in your life, or even how it can change how you react to them, but you're still going to react. So is it a matter of just being conscious so that you can deal with it rather than not dealing?
Yeah, it's being conscious of it. You're instead of resisting it from happening, you're allowing it to happen. And what it is we're not really trying to get rid of what we're feeling. Instead, we're learning how to move through it,
Fucking love that.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what, when clients first come to me, they're like, oh, I just don't want to feel this anymore. I want it to be done. I want it to be over with. And I'm like, okay, I understand it. Makes so much sense. But I cannot take the pain away. I can be with you in it and I can help you move through it. And this kind of work helps you out not just with what you're going through at that present time, but it's teaching you tools of how to get through the rest of your life because we're going to have more things come at us all the time, right? There's
Yes.
always going to be hard stuff in life.
Yes.
And so it's teaching you to not resist the feelings, kind of allow them to be with allow yourself to be with them in a way that feels safe and not trying to get rid of them, but move through them. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole processing thing, right? We're kind of
Yeah.
moving through the cycle and then they're gone. And then we're not storing them away in our body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you mentioned, the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to process things and then they can kind of move out. Not to say that they're not going to come back in,
Right.
right? But then we know what to do with them when they come back in.
Yeah. I got a guy who pulls clips. That what you just said, that's going to be a clip. Holy fuck.
Okay, great.
Can't take the pain away, but I can sit with you in it. That's fucking
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it.
And
Okay, one more thing. In
Mhm.
terms of my questions. Um,
Mhm.
when you were talking about sort of when you get when you start noticing these things, sometimes memories or things will pop up.
Mhm.
Is that part of the point, is to connect with some of these memories that led to these things so that you can again address them? Is that the case?
Yeah, and sometimes that happens. We go into memories. And we don't always have to get too deep into the experience of what happened, but what we're doing is we're like taking a look at how the body like held on to that and what is still happening in the body that feels like it's still living that experience today,
Mm,
right? So something might have happened to us a long time ago, but somehow our body, our nervous system, we think that it's still happening, and so we're
yeah,
still guarded or whatever it is that
right.
we're still doing this kind of behavior to protect ourselves from that thing that happened back then, and it's still presently living in our lives today. We're still behaving as if it's still happening.
Yeah. This is
That
this
makes
is
sense.
yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I mean, again, it's a
Mhm.
little abstract, but no, it makes sense to
Right.
me. But this stuff, this is hard work, right? I mean, this isn't easy.
hmm hmm Yeah, I mean, I could give an example too of just like, say, let me try to think of one that would kind of relate to divorce. So, um, say like growing up in childhood, we had a parent that was really hard on us. And like the only way we could receive love from that parent was to be, productive. Like we had to make good grades. We had to do all this in order to receive the love. There was all this pressure, right? Well, that can carry over into how we are in a present day relationship. And then when we get divorce like that is still happening. And so until we can kind of like get into like, ooh, this is my pattern, this is
Mm,
the way that I'm behaving in a relationship, and if we go into the next relationship it's still there, so it's like we're healing whatever these patterns are within ourselves. So in that case it's like we're working on like kind of breaking that behavior apart, like, oh, I have to do all this in order to receive love, and we're just realizing we're worthy of love as we are. We don't have to do all of these things to receive love.
yeah. I think that's a big part of this, right? Is acknowledging the shit from your childhood, the patterns that were developed, the I mean, we're raised by humans, right? And obviously, and
Mm-hmm.
and we are aware that humans are fallible. So therefore we're gonna have traumas. We're gonna have mistakes made by parents. We're gonna have bad patterns and bad habits. And especially a certain generation, I think there was a point in time where we started becoming conscious and aware of some of this stuff in a societal level where it
Mm-hmm.
didn't exist, you know, 40, 50, 60 years ago, right? That it just didn't really, I mean, maybe there was some small pockets, but thanks to the internet, in some ways, this stuff is more common in the lexicon. Like we can talk about trauma, we can talk about the body keeps the score, we can talk
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, shitty parenting in a way that makes it feel like a shared experience. So I think my point is, I think we all have dealt with this. Those of us from a certain age up, or or
Mm-hmm.
or back or whatever. Um, and so it's not. It's I think we're all damaged in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to your point, that damage gets repeated if we're not conscious of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is subconscious, is,
Oh yeah.
in our body. If a certain thing happens and our body tenses up in a certain way, like, where does that come from?
Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned when we started conversing um, that there are three key elements that you recommend people to focus on to rebuild after a loss. What are those? What are those three?
Yes. Those three are support, processing, and rebuilding. And I'll explain those.
Yeah,
So
break them down.
break them down. Okay, with support, oh, this is a huge one because we're looking at external sources of support and self-support. So with our external sources of support, we're making sure that we have people to help us, right? So that's looking at family, friends, maybe professional help, support groups, just any external support. And not only like questioning, do I have people? But it's like, is it the right support for me?
Mm,
Because sometimes we lean a lot on family or friends, right? That they're like, oh, they love us so much. We're so close to them. And we might think they're our biggest sources of support, but the way that they're supporting us might not be what we need. And so, kind of tapping into that somatic work, we're really kind of diving into what is it exactly that I need? What is helpful and what is not helpful? So, we're really looking at the support that we kind of have in our lives and seeing, is it helpful? Is it not? Is this what I need? What do I need? And even just
Is
talking about like therapy or somatic
right,
work or,
sure,
support groups, like, and everyone's an individual and we're all going to need different things.
right. Is
So it's
that
really
sorry?
individual.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had
No, it's
a thought.
fine.
I don't want to lose my thought.
Hmm.
Is that part of the somatic work is listening to your body so you know what isn't helpful? Because sometimes
Yes,
I don't know if you know, but so an example, if you vent to someone and or talk to someone or whatever, doesn't have to be venting, just talking about the situation, and you don't feel you don't get a it's not a good feeling for
right.
is that one of those things where if you're clued into your body you can I mean you may know in your mind too, but I think your body can give you some clues if you have a conversation with someone you intend to be helpful and you feel all tensed up uh, during or after or whatever, isn't that part of what this work can do for you is to
Yes.
allow you to see that, oh, this that I'm not going to go to that person again in that scenario.
Yes. We'll look at like what's going on in your body when you're speaking to that person. What's happening? Let's explore that. And a lot of times it's like, oh wow, yeah, when I talk to her, I feel worse when I leave. I get this heaviness in my chest. I almost feel angry or like, and we're looking at and kind of looking into the whys and just really kind of exploring like what really is the root of that.
Uh,
And then not only that, but ooh, what would have felt better? How do you want to feel? What do you need? And going into the body really helps us figure out more of what we need than we can kind of figure out in our mind. Because those can
uh,
be very different things.
yeah. Sorry, that was just a little bit of a sidebar.
No, that's a great question. Yeah.
So let's jump back into the three key elements.
hmm okay, so that kind of covers the external support. And the other part is self-support, right?
Mm,
And I say self-support is so important because we're the only ones that we're with 24/7, right?
very
Like
true.
we are the ones that we can be there for ourselves any time of the day, night. It's us, right? And so that's a lot. That's a lot of the work that I do is teach people how to do that. It's learning to work with your own nervous system, learning how to be with the emotions, like we talked about earlier, not trying to get rid of emotions, but learning how to safely be with them, how to move through them. It's just that's a really important piece. Like, what are you going to do when you have this moment that's very intense and you're feeling so much? How are you going to support yourself through that?
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And so that's a big piece. Um, and then the processing piece, that was the second piece, right? Processing. And I mean, I just always say to people, divorce is such a big thing to go through. Like we said, there's so many different losses, so much change happening, and it's often too big to go through and process on your own.
Mm,
And so I highly recommend like finding someone to help you process all of those emotions and feelings and just how your body is taking in everything and how your thoughts, your mind. I mean, it's so much, right?
yeah.
And I mean, I know how to do this work myself, right? I help people in this way, but I have my own somatic coach
Yeah.
as well because there is only, even though I know how to do this work, it's really hard to do it. I mean, you can do a certain bit of it on yourself,
Sure.
but you really need that other person to help guide you through a lot
Yeah.
of the processing.
So
Um,
when did you, if you don't mind, when did
yeah.
you start that work on yourself, and did that lead you to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, my story is pretty crazy. I went through so much loss myself. It started out with I got sick with many different chronic illnesses, and that just created so much loss. And then because of that, I lost my career. I myself went through a really painful divorce,
Oh,
and I just got so broken down from all the losses, all the changes, and really just lost myself. Like, looked in the mirror, didn't know who I was looking at anymore. Like, who am I without all of these things and people in my life? And I was on a healing journey for a long time, like trying to just feel okay, feel in my body again. It was like I was living my life, but I wasn't really in it,
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
And I went to therapists, I mean, every kind of healing modality. And it wasn't until I found somatic work that I was like, oh, wow, it really changed my life. That's when I really became aware of just all the trauma and grief that I was holding on to
Mm.
and really started to process all of the things that were keeping me stuck. And it was such a powerful transformation that I was like, I have got to learn how to do this work so that I can help other people in the same way because it really saved my life, changed my whole life. Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't, I'm never, I shouldn't say I'm never, I'm always surprised. It's not never, it's always, but I shouldn't be at the amount of people that I interview that I have no idea. I mean, it makes some sense, that people that have been through divorce also want to help people that are going through a divorce.
Hmm.
But I had
Hmm.
no idea that you had been through one.
Hmm.
It makes me, I don't know, it's a weird feeling there. Part of me is obviously sad for you, right?
Hmm.
Because I know the pain of it, and part of
Hmm.
me is also I'm incredibly grateful that people like you and I, it's
Hmm.
weird to say about myself, but that we exist because this shit is hard.
Yeah.
And it's so nice that there are people that are willing to try and help folks that are going through something that is incredibly painful.
Right.
If you don't mind, how long ago was your divorce? If you don't have to talk about it. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that divorce was 5 years ago,
And when did you
a little
feel
over five
like,
years ago.
yeah, when did you feel like, well, okay, so two questions. When did the
Hmm.
somatic work come in?
Hmm.
After in that time period, before or after? And then at
Hmm.
what point did you feel like you were, I don't want to say healed because I don't know that we ever completely heal from
Right.
something like that, but let's say healed enough.
Hmm. Ooh, let me think about that. Um, well, and keep in mind, I had like about 8 years before that, I was really dealing with a lot of the chronic illness stuff too. So there
Okay.
was a lot that was going on even before the divorce. I'd say, when did I start doing somatic work? I think it was about a year
Mm.
after the divorce. Um, and it's not a fast process.
No.
Say that I'm like, oh, I just feel better. But it was what it felt like was each session I could feel a little shift.
Mm.
And all of those little shifts would just build on each other and
Yeah.
build and build and build. And so it was like this gradual, like, oh, I'm coming back to life a little bit. I would have little glimpses in my day of like, oh, I feel a little bit more like myself, and then
Right.
it might go away. But it was just this slow building
Yeah.
of just kind of coming back home to myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely not I mean, no matter what modality or methods or healthy things that you choose to heal, it takes time. Although, I hesitate to say time heals because I don't believe that. I think work and time heal.
Right,
And
right.
everyone is different,
It's
right?
what we do in that time, right?
100%. Like it could have
Right.
taken you, it could have taken you 2 years, and it might take someone else 2 months, and probably not. But whatever.
Hmm.
Like it could be there because I get this question a lot. I also have a Facebook group where there's almost 8,000 men in it, and this question
Hmm.
comes up pretty frequently: is how long have it's been a year. How long is this going to take? And my answer is always the same: it takes as long as it takes. Like there is no time frame.
Right.
That's you can throw that out the window. Expectations of of time or a waste of time, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and then, yeah, there's no timeline to it. And it also depends on like what else is going on inside you. Because, when we go through a divorce, that's a time that really cracks us open
Mm-hmm.
and it can pull up a lot of other stuff that we haven't healed from as well. So someone's healing journey, I mean, everyone's going to be so different because
Yeah.
we have all of these things that, someone might have a lot of trauma that they've experienced through their life that is unhealed. And then there's someone that doesn't have as much. So their journey is going to be very different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Very true. Well, Ashley,
Mhm.
thank you so much for doing this. What's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you if they want to?
Um, well, you can find me on Instagram or you can go to my website, ashleymilus.com, to learn more about me. And I would just encourage anyone who is listening to this today that's interested maybe in somatic work, wants to find out more about that, to book a free consultation with me. I do a free 45-minute consultation with people, and I would love to listen and hear your story and just see how I could maybe help you and support you on the journey. And it's free. There's nothing to lose, if anything. I just love connecting with people. It makes me so happy. So just reach out to me. You can book that. Maybe you could put the link to book that
Yeah,
consultation too in the show
absolutely.
notes. And
Yeah, not a problem.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
I will definitely do that and encourage you guys to reach out. As you know, the last question I ask everyone is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man just beginning his divorce journey?
Mm, so much to say, right?
Yeah.
I would say, um, don't minimize your experience because what you're going through is a lot. Like I said, so much loss, so much change. And be careful with that should language. Like I should feel this or I shouldn't feel this. And just let yourself feel and be exactly as you are and get support, get fine. And like I said, that looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
Find the support that feels best to you. Because I think the worst thing you can do is to try to go through this alone.
Yeah.
Because when we go through things alone and feel things, keep them to ourselves, we kind of keep everything in the dark. That's when it does become a traumatic experience. We store it away as trauma when we go through things completely alone. We need people, we need connection, we need other people to help co-regulate our nervous systems through these like really hard times. And so just make a plan of how you're going to support yourself through this.
Yeah. Agreed. Excellent words of
Yeah.
wisdom. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for watching and or listening. If you are feeling alone on this journey, please join our Discord server. Becoming a phoenix is not a solitary act. It is one achieved through community. Our Discord server is just that, a community of men fighting to survive, thrive, and rise from their divorce. Go to risingphoenixpodcast.com/Discord for information on how to join and what is contained in our Discord server. Please join us.